Thank you for staying with us. You're still watching The Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. Police reject Amnesty International's allegation on hashtag End Bad Governance protest demands apology. The Nigerian police force has denied Amnesty International's claims of extrajudicial killings during the hashtag End Bad Governance protest, calling the November 28, 2024 report false, misleading, and damaging to the force's image. Police spokesman Muyiwa Adejobi rejected the allegations of excessive force, asserting that the police operate under professional standards and are committed to upholding human rights. He also refuted specific incidents mentioned in the report, including the use of grenades in Borno State and the alleged killings in Suleja and Katsina. Adejobi emphasized that officers are regularly trained in line with international human rights standards for protest management. The Nigerian police force plans to formally request a retraction of the report from Amnesty International and demand a public apology. The force remains resolute in protecting citizens' rights while maintaining national security and urge the public to be cautious of sensational reports designed to undermine the confidence in law enforcement. Now joining us this morning is Samson Ajibade. He's a criminologist and a security researcher. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Good morning, Samson. Hello, Samson. Can you hear me? I think we're having issues with Samson Ajibade.
Good morning, I'm with you. Can you hear me?
Okay, yes. I couldn't hear you at some point. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you clearly.
Fantastic. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
All right, so we're talking about the protest that happened in November, hashtag End Bad Governance protests, and of course, there are reports by Amnesty International. First, I want to get your take on the report that was being given by Amnesty International about the police.
Yeah, good morning once again.
Yeah.
What I read is something I came up with some questions. Tell me what reports the government, the Nigerian government, the police has never refuted. It is just like a norm, and I think they have the templates to refute claims in their files already. All they need to do is just to go there, bring out the templates, and read it out again. Things happen, then they would come and refute it. It is just a norm. And with the kind of system we have here, do our people, do they think the police would admit that truly their people manhandled Nigerian people? No, they wouldn't. They would never admit to it. Now, Adejobi, ACP Adejobi, he said he got reports, they work with in line with the international best practices and all. This is a system where one stays in Abuja, an armchair officer who stays in Abuja and gets subjective information, subjective reports and data from his people. Then PROs of each state would report to him. The PROs from each divisional headquarters and even area commands, they would report to the state PROs and they would report to Abuja. Now I ask, to those who are critical, to the logical ones, to those who are into research works, would one think data compiled by this system of police would be objective? No. The people in the local areas, that's the police formations in the local, they want to protect their personality, they want their organs, they want their bosses in Abuja to feel they are handling the situation very well. But here is a system where an armchair officer stays in Abuja, gets report from the state, and he just reads it out. I think the Nigerian system, not just the police alone here, and even the police, they should always be critical and even admit some of these Amnesty International's reports, so that it will help them in making logical decisions. So that it will help them in planning. It will help them in conducting training, and for them to understand the notion and the perspective of the public as towards their people and even the police in general. Amnesty is saying 124 people were arrested. Then we need to ask this to ACP Adejobi. Were people arrested? Yes. Were the right procedures followed in their prosecution? Were people killed? He said no, this and that. What is the methodology used? I not just read, I studied the Amnesty report. I read the summary, I read every step in research making. I read the methodology used. Activists were interviewed, journalists were interviewed, they had video evidences. Video evidences were there. And even victims were interviewed. Parents, relatives of victims were interviewed. Would anyone lie that he lost his person just to gain public sympathy? This is the methodology used by Amnesty International because they needed to conduct a thorough research, which should be objective.
Yeah. All right.
And here it is. We were here, I was here months ago, where we discussed the killings in Benue State, where over 2,000 people were killed. Yesterday, the government came out and said no. So it is a norm. See, another report will come out tomorrow. The Nigerian government, you should also expect that. Just when I studied the Amnesty reports, I said no, don't worry, they will still come. They will they will they will refute the claim without conducting a research themselves.
Yeah. So, I mean, in cases like this, right, we know that social media plays a major role. And in fact, we saw videos, we saw things happen, in different states. So when there's evidence, live evidence, sometimes you wonder why the police will always try to refute it, because Amnesty International would not just come and say something that did not happen. And like you said, research was being done, lots of people were being interviewed, and they came up with this, but the police here is refuting it. Now, many Nigerians always express their distrust, with the police. With them always refuting such allegations instead of learning from them, how do you think they're supposed to regain public confidence? Isn't that always going to make people not trust them because they just think that, of course, the police is always going to lie even when they do things?
How do they gain the public confidence? Very simple. It is for them to do the right thing. Let them prosecute officers found culpable. But in this system here, the police and even the PRO has become a court of law. It now comes up with laws. It now dictates what should be tagged a crime to the Nigerian people, when it is not the duty of the police to do such. In doing that, when you have evidences there and you keep refuting, how do you gain public trust? It is until you begin to stand as an objective talker, until you begin to make the public see you as someone who isn't defending the system, who isn't saying, I'm after my job. Amnesty gave us pictures. We got pictorial representation of these victims. We also have their names attached. Okay, if the police would have to do due diligence, why can't you confirm the names? Were these names just were they just brought together? Were they false names? Mm-hmm. Names were attached. If the families were visited, did the local police officer visit the families of the victims? These are the things. If they didn't do this, then there will be cynicism, there will be distrust, and the system would always be against the people. Let them regain the public trust by doing the right thing. Let them also conduct an objective research. If officers are found culpable, let them prosecute them. If there's a need for them to tender an apology. Let them apologize to the Nigerian people. Let them promise us professionalism.
Yeah.
That is it. Let them do the right.
Yeah, I agree with you. So, of course, there are some systemic issues here. For instance, we had the hashtag #EndSARS protests, and that protest stemmed from the fact that there was excessive use of force and police brutality. Now, hashtag End Bad Governance too, obviously wasn't about the police, but police has a role to play in it. With all of this, how do you think the police is addressing these issues? Because it's one thing to come and say, oh, you're lying, but are they really looking at it holistically and saying, okay, in what ways have we faltered? And how can we do better? If these are systemic issues that needs to be addressed, do you think they're even addressing it at all?
Do I think they are addressing it? They are not. Because the police has that history. There is a history of human rights violation. I've also conducted more research on that. I have my research on it. It is just part of the system. And the Public Order Act, when the protest came up, they were saying they should get permits, they should do this, they should do that, and all. But there was a time I came here and I started a judgment where the people are not even obligated. In fact, the force we are saying here, the police goes beyond using physical force or kinetic force. They also threaten people. The police threaten protesters. They could say, okay, we want them. Warning that comes from the Nigerian police or warnings that come from the Nigerian police are always in form of threats. And when they see that protesters, Nigerians exercising their fundamental rights, do not back down. The thing is this, the police, the Nigerian government needs to know that there is difference between fundamental rights and just rights. It is my rights. It is I am born with it. It is just the duty of the government to protect it. The right is not just given by the government, but the rights are then protected. So the police should begin to do the right thing, but the history of it, and they have that history of always defending their people. Another thing happens tomorrow, the police will come, an activist was arrested from Lagos to Abuja. And he was with them for a week. They didn't charge her to court. Now, when they never charged the person to court, what notion do you want the person's family members to have about the police and even other activists concerned? If we do not do the right thing, I tell you, we will just be there. People protesting even for the betterment of Nigeria that will affect the police are also being manhandled. The police has a history of it.
Okay, so, I mean, the police obviously is under the government. So, of course, they have to listen to the government. Looking ahead, what reforms or strategies do you think that needs to be put in place, especially from the government or from our leaders, to ensure that the police are doing their jobs, one, and not manhandling or violating the rights of the citizens?
You said what?
What reforms or strategies? What reforms or strategies do you think needs to be put in place by the government? So maybe by legislation or something to ensure that the police are not violating the human rights of the citizens.
Okay, what measures and reforms should be done?
Yeah.
Weeks ago, the IGP said they wanted to train their men on professionalism, ethics, and all. We also need to change our attitude as a people, as a nation. And I was here weeks ago when I said that if the police needs to change, it lies in the executive. Because you said that the police, they are under the government.
Yeah.
When in democratic system, not even be under the government, because the police is just an institution in one of the arms of government. If there is separation of powers, the police, the executive should not dictate absolutely to the police, because it is not just to protect the leader or the executive, it is also to protect the people, the masses. That is it. Now let's go. What reforms? You can keep training them. In fact, bring foreigners to train the Nigerian police. They've always had trainings. Yes, they've always had trainings. But things haven't really changed. But we wouldn't stop calling for trainings. They
Yeah.
need to train them. But I'm telling you, there are a lot of officers that need to leave the system.
All right, Samson.
We commit atrocities, yet still the system abuts them.
All
The
right, all right.
system protects them.
Thank
That is
you.
it.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there when you talk about training, and of course, I think something I'm also going to add is, if anyone is found culpable, they should, they should face the music. They should be arrested, because you cannot just keep dehumanizing the citizens of Nigeria. But anyways, this is how much we can take right now. Thank you so much, Samson, for coming. It's always a pleasure having you on our show. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
And compliments of the season to you as well.
I wish you the same. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day. All right, so we're speaking
You
with
too.
Samson Ajibade. He's a criminologist and a security researcher. And we've just been talking about the report from Amnesty International. The police have refuted it and also called for an apology from them. But we'll see how it goes. This is where we have to say goodbye on the show today. Thank you so much for having the breakfast with me. As always, my name is Rume Paulson. We'll see you again. Have a wonderful day, and compliments of the season to you again. Good morning.